Hello friends, my name is Cindy and I am one of the children's librarians at Portland Public Library in Portland, Maine. And today for our learning video, we're going to read about the Chiru of High Tibet, a true story, written by Jacqueline Briggs Martin and illustrated by Linda Wingirder. It has really beautiful illustrations. I'll show you the back. Very pretty. All right, here we go. The Chiru of High Tibet. Tibet is a large area in the center of the Asian continent, bordered by mountains. Since the 1950s, it has been known as the Tibet Autonomous Region of China. The Chang Tang. There is a place so cold it takes the fleece of 5 sheep to keep one person warm. So high, with so little rain, the tallest tree is a shrub that would not reach a grown man's knee. This place is called the Chang Tang, the northern plains of Tibet. In this cold, windy country live the Chiru. Without the Chiru, there would be no story. Chiru. Chiru are the only animals of their kind. They look like antelope, but are related to wild goats and sheep. Chiru males have long black horns that might be taken for a moving forest of tree branches when a group passes by. Many Tibetans believe these horns have special healing powers. And it says from hoof to shoulder, Chiru are about as tall as baseball bats. So they're very tiny. The Chiru are also special for this. Each summer, across the Chang Tang, Chiru females migrate in large groups to faraway secret areas to give birth. Where are these secret places? For hundreds of years, even Tibetan nomads did not know. Chiru wool is special too, the warmest and finest in the world. People call it chatouche, the king of wools. Shawls made of chatouche are elegant, soft, and warm. When wealthy women in the cities of the world discovered these shawls, Chiru across the Chang Tang were killed for their wool. The population shrank from 1 million Chiru to fewer than 100,000. In the wide, unpeopled plains, who would care if the Chiru disappeared? Without George B. Schaller, there would be no story. A Chiru hair is 1/7 the thickness of a human hair. George B. Schaller. When George Schaller was a boy in Germany, he read books about Tibet and imagined himself on the high plains. When he grew up, he traveled the world studying wildlife and made many trips to Tibet, where he worked with Tibetan and Chinese scientists. George Schaller was sure that if the Chiru were not protected, they would soon be extinct, gone, nothing left but bones and black horns. He believed the secret place where the Chang Tang Chiru gave birth must be protected from hunters. He decided to follow the thousands of Chiru who would begin walking north toward the Kunlun Mountains in late May. And then there's a little sidebar that says, why can't Chiru be sheared as sheep are? They would freeze in their cold climate without their wool. They have so far not survived in captivity, so they cannot be raised for their wool. But he arrived too late. The Chiru had already left. The next spring, he arrived in time, but the travel was slow. His trucks got mired in snow and mud. He ran short of food and fuel and had to turn back. The year he took camels and donkeys, he got closer to the secret calving area, but had to turn back when food ran out for the pack animals. Still, the Chiru were being killed, thousands each year. George Schaller wrote, wearing a chatouche shawl is the same as wearing 3 to 5 dead Chiru. That's when 4 mountain climbing men offered to help. They would take no trucks to get stuck, no camels or donkeys to feed. They would be the pack animals themselves and follow the Chiru more than 200 miles to find the secret place. Without these trekkers, there would be no story. And there's a sidebar here that says others were also working to save Chiru. In the eastern Changtang, a group of Tibetan volunteers who called themselves the Yak Brigade apprehended many Chiru poachers. In 1994, their leader was killed by poachers. Laws were passed in many countries making it illegal to buy or sell Chiru shawls, but the poaching continued. The mountain climbing men. These 4 men have walked up the world's tallest peaks and kayaked the coldest seas. They've taken photographs of places seen mostly by high-flying birds. But for this one summer, they did not climb mountains or take pictures from treetops. They pulled wheeled carts. Carts loaded with tents, cameras, journals, water, food, and a cook stove across the plains of the Changtang. They were carrying questions, too. Had they brought enough food? Would they be able to find the Chiru? And it says in a sidebar, aluminum carts like rickshaws were specially made for this trip. With their loads, each cart weighed at least 250 pounds. George Schaller had told the 4 men where to begin. They learned to get up before sunrise, to travel before afternoon mud time. Often they awoke in snow. For breakfast, they ate hot oatmeal or granola with dried fruit. Lunch was nuts, dried beef, and an energy bar. For supper, they cooked falafel or beans and rice. The men also shared a thin slice of salami and a few crumbles of Parmesan cheese. Dessert was a cup of hot chocolate. And it says mud time occurs when the sun melts the ice in the soil above the permafrost, the permanently frozen layer of soil. On the 5th day of the trek, photographer Jimmy Chin shouted, "Animals! Hundreds of them!" Rick Ridgway looked through his binoculars, but saw only rocks shaped like resting Chiru. That night, worries buzzed in their heads. Were they making their cart-hauling trip too late? Why had they seen so few Chiru? Were there enough females left to make the migration to the birthing grounds? On the 6th day, after they unhooked their heavy carts to make camp, photographer Galen Rowell climbed a ridge and looked out over the plain. He signaled, "Come quietly." The others crawled toward him, not saying a word. When they looked up, they saw Chiru, 100 Chiru. I missed a page. For the next 4 days, they followed the Chiru along ruts made by centuries of migrations. When the plains led into hills, the animals spread out, taking many different paths. The best route the trackers could see on their maps took them into a rough, rock-strewn canyon with high, steep walls. They worked together, often standing in a canyon stream, icy water filling their boots, pushing, pulling, lifting the heavy carts over boulders. Rocks as big as basketballs fell off the canyon walls. Conrad Anker touched his forehead with a photograph of his family, as Tibetans do, to bring good luck. Luck to get them out of the canyon, luck to find the Chiru again. On flat land, the 4 men were able to travel at most 20 miles per day. Some days in the mountains, they did not even go 6 miles. After several days in this rough canyon, the carts began to crack. To save them from breaking, the men backpacked their goods around the canyon rocks. On the 15th day of their journey, they trudged out of the gorge of despair, mended the carts with tape and wire, reloaded, and pulled them into the high desert. Day 16, they pushed on, 4 alone under the huge sky. They were always hungry and dreamed of ice cream. Then they noticed tracks, camel tracks, George Schaller's tracks from last year, saved in the dried mud, and they walked faster. At the end of that day, Rick Ridgway thought he saw rocks in the foothills across the plains from their campsite. But when he looked through his binoculars, he shouted, "Chiru, hundreds of them, no, 1,000. We've found the calving grounds." Galen Rowell and Jimmy Chin covered themselves with netting and crawled on knees and elbows just after sunrise to a place where they could take pictures. These bold, strong men were quiet as new kittens, so as not to frighten the Chiru they'd come so far to find. They went out again the next day to take more pictures of wobbly-legged babies running to keep up with their mothers or flopping down to nap on the ground. The men had not been able to haul enough food to stay longer in the Kunlun Mountains, but they had seen what they came for, the secret calving grounds, the just-born Chiru. Now they knew for sure and had pictures to show where it was. George Schaller could ask the Chinese government to make this birthing ground a place protected from hunters forever. The trekkers' accounts of their trip have been carefully vague about the exact location of the secret place to help the Chiru stay hidden. Chiru Paths. There is a place so cold it takes the fleece of 5 sheep to keep one person warm. So dry the tallest tree is a shrub that would not reach a grown man's knee. This place is called the Chang Tang. In this cold and windy country, guards now patrol for the hunters who kill for wool. Each spring, Chiru still make their trip north to give birth, tracing their way across the high plains, over the steps of George B. Schaller, over the wheel prints of the 4 mountain-climbing men. When their babies are strong, the Chiru walk south to home ground over the same route. And the story of the Chang Tang Chiru circles on. Oh, and here are some really adorable pictures. Or one picture of a Chiru. It says a baby Chiru resting at the calving grounds in the foothills of the Kunlun Mountains. And then there's a picture of George Schaller on the Chang Tang Plateau in Tibet. Look how cute that little baby is. And then it says the 4 trekkers at the end of their trek to find the Chiru calving grounds, left to right, Conrad Anker, Rick Ridgway, Galen Rowell, and Jimmy Chin. It says Galen Rowell was killed in an airplane crash in California in August 2002, just months after returning from the Chang Tang expedition. And it says trekkers work to get carts through the Gorge of Despair in northern Tibet. Right there. Wow. And the author's note says, researching this story included a trip to Aru Basin in the Chang Tang Reserve in Tibet. I'd like to thank Wellesley College for the Mary Elvira Stevens travel grant that made that trip possible. Ann Ryder, as always, offered wise guidance and generous support during the second journey, the journey from draft to book. And he would also like to thank George B. Schaller and Rick Ridgway for assistance with this manuscript. Their expertise is evident in many places in this story. Quotes in the book are from the Big Open. If there are inaccuracies, they are gaps in my knowledge, not theirs. And so that was the Chiru of High Tibet, a true story, written by Jacqueline Briggs Martin and illustrated by Linda Wingerter. That was very interesting. My name is Cindy. I am one of the children's librarians at Portland Public Library in Portland, Maine, and I hope that you enjoyed reading this as much as I did. Thank you for coming by, friends. Bye-bye.